Good morning and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. It is Thursday, the 19th of November of 2020, and I'm glad to have you aboard. Welcome aboard if you're coming to me from Rumble, from the podcast, or from YouTube. I just wanted to talk about the subject of a blog post I'm in the process of writing. It's called Eroding Liberties. And basically what we're talking about is this frog in the slowly heated water that doesn't jump out, right, where a whole bunch of things are happening, sort of conspiring to make it so that our liberty, our freedom in the United States, and probably the freedom in other parts of the world, is at serious risk, in my opinion, at this point in time. And I want, again, to make this something that I make sort of more generic. I want this to be, I would like for this to be something that's a focus for a time to come as well as present time. The thing of it is, you can say all you want that requiring people to stay in their houses, to wear masks in their houses, to not have outings on Thanksgiving and on Christmas, to potentially, this is not happening in the United States. It is happening in other places in the world, where they're talking about requiring people to have vaccines and literally having police enforcement of such activities. And my answer is, in other places in the world, that may be illegal. I've heard stories about things that are going on in Denmark to that effect. I've heard stories in Australia about people who are being told that any kind of even talk about having some sort of a public meeting is potentially enough to get you tossed in jail, or at least, have your devices confiscated and various things. And I just want you to know that this is not how America works, how the United States works. I can't speak for the rest of the world. I can only speak for America. We're already very far into, in my opinion, a bunch of things going on that are seriously not conducive, seriously unconducive. I don't know what the proper negativization is, but you get the idea, to liberty. Okay, this country, if you look at people in 17, 18, 19, whenever it was that the Spanish flu happened, if you look at those people and you tell those people, you had told those people, you must shelter in place, you must wear masks and so forth. At that time, people would have laughed at you, and that would have been pretty much the end of that. Well, these days, we've got local politicians who are telling people you have to do these things, and you've got states doing likewise, and quite frankly, you've got the federal government backing all of this up. Now, to be fair, the federal government, as a rule, is not taking any action. They're simply saying you have to do these things. And the state is probably likewise. And to be honest with you, most localities are not doing anything really to enforce what's going on. Even still, the idea that the state has any right to dictate this sort of thing to you can potentially lead to very, very bad situations, right? And it's certainly not things anybody wants to see. What's important is we need to be worrying about safeguarding liberties, right? We need to be constantly watching for this. And I'm not saying, the Democrats are the only ones doing this or the Republicans are the only ones doing this. I'm saying that this is something we need to look for as a general thing. I will point out that most of the time when this sort of thing is happening, it does tend to be a liberal phenomenon. That's beside the point in terms of the fact that we ought to be watching on all fronts. Okay, that's a really important thing. This also factors into, or a thing that factors into this is also free and fair elections, and the idea that we can keep people from polling places, or that we're sending out ballots as a way to keep people from going to those polling places, is that, to me, is a bad thing, right? And I have to say, I don't have a problem with the idea that various folks, either in the government or outside of it, have the ability and the right to say, we would really like for you to do this, or we really suggest you do this. But I want to point something out here, and it is that if you look at the measures that have taken place with regard to COVID-19, there are arguments that the lockdown has been ineffective because people didn't follow the lockdown or because places stopped locking down. And my answer to that is I'm pretty sure that that's not true. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I'm pretty sure everybody pretty much is still locked down. I'm in Arkansas, and in Arkansas, I don't know if there's any real lockdowns. We've got mask wear when you go into public places that they insist on, at least in my little area, in my little part of the state. But the fact of the matter is, I don't really go anywhere. I go to the store, I go to restaurants to pick up food, really only one restaurant at this point, and I go home. And those are the only places I go at this point. Other than that, in the nicer months of the year, I take my son to the park, and if I get the chance, I do things of that sort. But I don't generally go much of anywhere at this point, whereas I would normally have been quite active and gone a number of different places under different circumstances. So I don't believe that that's true. So I believe that there are already questions of whether or not liberty is being infringed or impinged. I think that's a serious issue, and I think we need to look at it very seriously, and people need to really consider the idea that that's happening. And I'll just tell you something. For me personally, when it comes down to doing things like requiring me to wear a mask when I go into a store or whatever, it means I'm going to minimize my time in stores and the like. And what that's going to mean is it's going to affect the economy of various places. And I won't get into details, but I recently went somewhere where they did contact tracing on me, and I'm like, guys, you have no cases of COVID-19. I don't really understand why you're doing this. Now, to be fair, there are parts of the country, and I count my own little part of the world, not great, but not horrible, where they're being a lot better about how they're, dealing with certain things. So in my little area, the schools are open, and they're not open full time like they normally would be, where they would do full days every day of the week. They're not open on Wednesdays for part of the day, and they're going to do virtual learning days around Thanksgiving and various things of that sort. But in general, they're open. So to their credit, they're actually trying to do that, even when they're reporting COVID-19 cases. And I want to point out something that a number of other people have said. I want to give a shout out to Bruce the Boss Brooks, for example, and others who have said, there's this consideration. Tim Pool has said this, I know, and it is, look, you've had this supposed spike in cases, and I think it's probably real. I think there's been a spike in cases, but here's the thing of COVID-19. But here's the thing, okay? There's been a spike in cases in infections, and there's been a mild spike, as one would expect, considering that there was a spike in cases, in fatalities. But it's been a mild spike. It hasn't been a major spike. And I'm going to say this again. My expectation with COVID-19 is it's going to run the country until there's no one left to get to, and then it's going to sort of die off. It's going to pretty much disappear, much like Spanish influenza did. And the point is, if you lock people down, if you require them to give up their freedom in order to do that, you've done two things, right? Number one, you've prolonged the agony. That's reality. Okay, yeah, you might have saved a few lives by making it so that you had restorative functionalities in place, like medications and ventilators and various things, which I have serious doubts about some of them, but you might have done that. But the second thing that you do is you put in place precedent that says it's reasonable for us to expect people to lock themselves away in their home, wear masks, etc. And this is an infringement on liberty, on freedom. And this is what I have a major problem with. Telling people it's a good idea for you to do this, great. Telling businesses you should have your people do this, fine. Telling people they have to do any of the above, not so great, not so fine. And so this is kind of where I'm going with this, is I think that we need to be constantly alert for the idea that there will be people who will do what they can, tell us we can't gather water in rain barrels, for goodness sakes. Tell us that we can't, I'm sure there are a number of other ridiculous things. How we can get our milk, that it has to be pasteurized, homogenized, and everything else. And none of this is good. None of this is good. So to me, we need to move back in directions of more freedom, where we warn people, look, this is a possible outcome, but that's basically all we need to do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up now. Hope you've gotten something out of my video. As I say, again, welcome aboard if you're on Rumble on the podcast or on YouTube. And today is Thursday, the 19th of November, 2020. Tomorrow being Friday, the 20th of November, 2020. I'm going to try and do another video. And hopefully we will see you then. In the meantime, you have an excellent day. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Thursday, the 19th of October, 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for checking out this video. Remember that you can like it on YouTube and you can give it a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. I have channels on both YouTube and Rumble. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels. You can subscribe to either one of those if you want to do so. Remember, if you subscribe on YouTube, you probably want to click the notification bell in order to be notified of new content. If you want to see more from me, you can check me out on my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. You can also see my Facebook page. That is Kurt's Religion and Politics on Facebook. You can check out my Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com accounts. My handle on all three of those is at kpschubert. That's at kpschubert. You can check out my podcast. The podcast is at podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcast.kpschubert.com. And finally, you can check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support me, that's probably one of the better places that you can do that. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thanks again for checking out this video, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.